there is a branding process, and it's basically delivering and setting an expectation for what you want your clients to experience. From the moment they find out about you to the moment you complete your service, and even afterwards with the feedback. So every single thing that happens between this business interaction needs to be intentional. The way your company is projected, the way you deliver your company and present your company to the public, that determines a lot about whether or not someone's going to even reach out to you.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey everybody, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, the podcast that brings you actionable insights for small business owners. And this week you get to meet Melva Robertson. Melva runs Right Media Group, a brand consulting firm specializing in effectively communicating your messages to your audience. She's out of Atlanta, focusing on helping you build your personal brand. She's the author of several books, including Congratulations, It's a Brand, and The Brand New Leader, Recognizing the Impact of Your Leadership Brand. Welcome, Melva.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and to talk to your audience.
Good to have you on the show. So Melva, let's just dive right in. What is a personal brand?
Well, a personal brand is basically your reputation. It is what people experience when they encounter you. It's the same idea of branding as we've heard from corporate branding, professional branding, leadership branding. Branding is just that. It's just the reputation. So really what you want to do when you think about branding is to make sure that what you're promising and what you're delivering is actually what people are experiencing.
Makes a lot of sense. So if I'm a local business person and I'm not Pepsi with a Super Bowl commercial, I'm just a guy who does plumbing or electrician or remodeling of your house, how do I think about building a personal brand for my little business?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you are, as I call, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, there is a branding process, and it's basically delivering and setting an expectation for what you want your clients to experience. So if it's going to be exceptional customer service, if it's going to be timely feedback when you get customer inquiries or customer complaints, if it's going to be just the way that you deliver your product to a certain level or a certain standard, all of those things are part of your brand and what people are experiencing. So I would say that those are the companies actually that need to really think mostly about their brand, because we aren't as forgiving as the general population to the small businesses and the solo entrepreneur as we are to these big corporations. We could experience a bad encounter at a larger corporation or a major retail company, and we're a little bit more forgiving than when it's someone who has started their own business and maybe they're just having some growing pains or trying to get through some of the weeds of the business. We usually can turn away from those entrepreneurs more quickly. So I always say, act as though you are the major market for Fortune 500 company, because that's in your mind, that's the same type of delivery that you should have, sometimes even better.
Right. So, okay, it's about my reputation and how people see me. It's not just about the logo on my business card. What are some of the ways you suggest that small businesses build that reputation? Obviously, they want to do a good job when they appear at someone's home. That comes naturally. That's what they do. What are the other things they need to be thinking about?
It's from the very beginning, from the moment they find out about you to the moment you complete your service, and even afterwards with the feedback. So every single thing that happens between this business interaction needs to be intentional. The way your company is projected, the way you deliver your company and present your company to the public, that determines a lot about whether or not someone's going to even reach out to you. So you want to think about that. And there is some aspect of the logos and the slogans and those kinds of things that go into branding, but it's really more about the experience. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're a company that is doing a home, some type of home improvement service, then when I call you as the client, from the very first moment we have that conversation, it needs to be professional. It needs to be very direct in terms of what you can provide and what you can offer and how that process works. And then you need to make sure that you're actually doing what you say you're going to do. So if you're going to be at the house by between the hours of 12 and 2, for instance, then be there between 12 and 2. And if something happens, communicate with your client to let them know, hey, I'm running behind. Are you still available in the next 30 minutes? And just everything from that entire process needs to be intentional, and it needs to be directed at having an exceptional customer experience. I actually had someone who sent me a text the other day and said, see, this is why I have struggles with certain businesses, because they don't deliver. And she was waiting on someone to arrive at her house to perform a service. And 30 minutes to an hour after the scheduled time to be there, she hadn't heard from the company. And she was like, if I weren't desperate, I wouldn't even bother calling to find out where they are. But she definitely said that she wasn't using that company again. And all of that is part of their brand. So now for her, that brand is associated with being late, poor communication, and they're going to be extra critical of the work. Whereas if it's going to have to be spot on, because there are already so many other strikes against them. So those are some of the things that you really want to think about, is just that experience from beginning to end and even afterwards, so that you can have a repeat customer.
Right. So how do you walk a small business through the process of going from the way they used to do it, and let's say that's the kind of experience that this person articulated to you, to the experience you want to deliver? How do you make that journey from what wasn't a good experience to what is a good experience?
Well, I think it starts with feedback. So I definitely recommend that organizations find a way to get customer feedback, and then look at that feedback, assess what they're saying, and make modifications based on some of the things that you're hearing, especially if you're hearing it repeatedly from multiple customers. And what I would do with a client who is an entrepreneur and looking at these types of customer complaints, or not even all the time complaints, but just suggestions, is, okay, what can we do to make sure that this does not happen again for this client? And how can we put a Band-Aid on the situation so that we can heal and still keep this client and retain this client for future services and for potential recommendations in the future? So really finding ways to get this feedback and really listening. It's a lot of about entrepreneurship revolves around listening to the customer, meeting their needs, meeting their expectations, and adjusting when there are some situations that don't go as planned.
Yeah, that's interesting. The product our company makes, which is called Thryv, it's a software product, is actually designed to improve the client experience. Mm-hmm. And the client experience, pretty much as you just said, we view as starting from the very first time somebody finds you and maybe books an appointment, that opening moment, all the way through confirming the appointment, showing up for the appointment, as you said, assessing the situation, the problem, giving them estimates, invoices, other documents that may support the job you're recommending, obviously performing the job, and then collecting the payment, and then any kind of follow-up, whether it's please give me a referral, or thank you for your business, or let me notify you next time I'm in your area, maybe I can stop by and give you an assessment, as well as, of course, asking for future business. That's kind of what our platform does, and it's all around the communication piece, as you said, enabling the texting, the emailing, and having the history too. Many small businesses don't have the history on their customers. That's part of our package, our software package. It captures all that customer history in one place. So the next time you talk to somebody, you have all that prior information. And I mentioned that because I'm wondering, do you talk to your customers about technology or software or any of the tools they might use in order to make this experience better? Not just to be sort of nicer people, but any of the tools that might, for example, automate. Because a lot of the small businesses we find who are doing things the old way tend to use paper and pen. And it's hard to keep up if you have a growing business, if you're still thinking I'm supposed to do everything on paper, not do anything electronically. So do you get into that?
I do to a certain extent. I definitely make recommendations. So if we're doing an assessment and it turns out that there is a lot of paper exchange and paper and pen, and we're not, just offering these certain conveniences to the customers that their competition is definitely offering, then we look at that and I can make recommendations, not necessarily for the particular software that they need, but hey, you probably want to look into a bookkeeping software. You probably want to look into some type of Square or digital payment software. And that's some of the things that we talk about in ways to improve. Because, we're in a digital world right now, especially with the pandemic and everyone in this virtual environment. So it's very important. And that's actually a large part of the reasons that some companies did not sustain during the pandemic is that they weren't able to adapt to this virtual environment. So yes, that is part of the assessment, is looking at how can you make this experience holistically better for your clients.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, one of the things we have found is you just look at how consumers behave. It wasn't that long ago, I don't know, maybe a decade, where, not everybody was on a cell phone all the time. And so, they'd allow for a little bit of time to elapse before maybe they called somebody and they left a voicemail, and then the business got back to them, and they didn't expect it quite so instantly. Now, given that everybody's on a smartphone, just about everybody, the expectation is instantaneous. I mean, if you have a teenage kid and they text you, they're like, what happened if they don't hear back in like 39 seconds? I mean, it's just everything is speeded up. And so, we as consumers sort of get that way. And we're living in the age of, companies like Amazon, where you order a product and you expect it on your doorstep the next day. Furthermore, you expect to be able to track it the whole way from warehouse to your front door. So the consumer's expectation is elevated, and that may be tough luck for the small business, but that's the way it is.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, the small business is in competition with these larger corporations, because the larger corporations are the ones that have set the expectation. And so somewhere in our minds, we're not able to translate or to distinguish between what a large corporation is able to do versus what a smaller entrepreneur is able to do. And so when we don't get those same conveniences of the bigger corporations, we feel as though that entrepreneur or that small business isn't up to par or meeting the standard. So, there are some things you just can't compete with if you're, a smaller organization versus a Fortune 500 company. But there are ways that you can just make sure that the experience is well enough that people will, they start to become more I would say more forgiving is kind of a harsher way to say it, but forgiving to a certain extent, because then their experience was one that they remember. And people are more connected to businesses because of what they experienced. If you go into a store, if you go into a restaurant or an organization, and they have a very poor experience, poor customer service, the food was awful, everything, the place wasn't clean, all of these different feelings and emotions that conjure up because of these experiences. If those aren't positive, that directly affects whether or not that customer will come back. And so it's the same thing with any type of experience. If you're able to provide that experience, then that increases your value for your customer, and they are more forgiving in those technological things that you may not be able to compete with. And as much as you can, there are ways to get around some of the things that we expect as a digital world now. Yeah,
100%. Yeah. I was just thinking, like Domino's has really set the standard in the pizza business. You order it, you see it leaving the pizza leaving the oven, they get it to you in under 30 minutes. You get to track your pizza from the moment it leaves the oven to your house. Now, maybe if you're ordering from your local Italian pizza place that, local, very good food, maybe you don't expect it in 30 minutes because it's local and the owner, and it's very great food. So you don't expect it quite as quick, or maybe you expect to go there and eat it at the place. But in order for you to accept that you're not going to get it as fast, the food better be better. The dining experience has to be better. The people have to be more maybe interesting, or something like that. I understand. So you talked to me before we got on about your strategic planning process. Like the way you help the businesses is through something you call the strategic planning process. So they really get to think about this whole vision of how they're going to run their business. How do you walk me through it?
Sure. So with the strategic planning process, it revolves around the idea that everything you do needs to be intentional. You need a plan. And when I sit down with a client, the first things that we talk about, one is, who are you? How do you want to be known? How do you describe yourself? We start with what I call the why statement, which talks about what is your impact, what is your contribution, and what are we to expect from that? So thinking through that helps clients to better define who they are and sort of the elevator pitch that they'll need when they're introducing themselves to their company. So we talk about that. That's sort of the who we are and what you do. And then we look at, who is your audience? Who's your target audience? Who are the people that don't need convincing that they need you? So, there's been plenty of times, I'm sure, that we've heard about a company. They quickly convince us that they can meet our need, and boom, we've already looked them up and booked our appointment. So that's your target audience. We were the target audience in that scenario. So what we think about is, who's the target audience? Because no matter what you do, everyone, and I get that a lot from clients, is, oh yeah, my services are for everyone, but they're not. So we look at, who's the group that does not need convincing that they need you, and then who's that secondary audience who, after they learn about you and we massage it a little bit, they say, oh yeah, I might need this service and let me try it out. We talk about those two groups. And then, where are they and how do we communicate with them? So that's where we start when we talk about the strategic planning process, because then you're not just throwing your name out there in the big abyss of businesses that exist. And you're able to really define who it is that you're targeting, how you need to speak to them, what are the ways to get to them, and we can define and sort of identify a strategy to make that happen. The other things that we talk about are, some of the traditional brand concepts that people think about, which is content for their website or developing their website and social media and logos and things like that. And we really look at, with those things, are they really defining who you are as a business? And we'll talk through that and kind of work through that. And then my favorite part is the short, medium, and long-term goals. And we start with, what's the big goal, and we work our way back. So how do we go from where we want to be? We trace that back to where we are now. And then ultimately it's, how do we get there? And we've kind of defined that by starting at, what's the big picture, and working our way back. We section those off into short, medium, long term. So immediately we need to start doing this. Midway in the process, we'll be able to move into this. And then ultimately we'll reach our goal and head in those steps to get to that bigger goal. And I think that looking at it like that is very helpful, because it's not this big pie in the sky concept. It's chewing the elephant one bite at a time. And we have milestones. So then you're able to really identify and see the progress that you're making. And you're also able to sustain if you're not taking me along the way the entire time. So that's kind of the strategic planning process. And what I look for is really helping business to achieve their goals by helping them to think through the strategy and what resources they might need to do so.
Yep. And what is, at the end of the process, at the end of the strategic planning process, does the business get a document, like a written plan? What's the output?
Yeah, so the outcome of that will be a couple of things. They will get a synopsis of what we've discussed and sort of their plan that we've mapped out. But then they also are getting information and resources and action items and next steps. So it's not just, here's your document, go. It's now, these are the things that we've put into place that you said you wanted. This is what you need to do to get there. So here are some steps that are outlined. And it's based on a conversation. This is a strategic planning partnership. So we're working together to think through these strategies and all of the different things. It's more coaching through some of these strategies and things that the consumer or the client wants to get done. So they have a plan, they have action items to get there. And then if it's an ongoing relationship, then they come back and we do check-ins and we see where we are and where we need to modify or what were the wins or what were not and how we adjust going forward.
Got it. And have you found, Melva, that you're able to prove this works in terms of the business outcomes? Like small businesses, of course, are notoriously short on cash, probably hard to get them to pay for things like strategic planning process. So they're going to want to know, this is actually going to help my business. This is going to generate more revenues, help me get more customers, keep those customers longer, help my business grow in the end. Have you been able to prove that you're able to deliver that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because the way the process works is this is real life, tangible, not just vision, but this is actual plans. And these are actual things. Again, it's a partnership. So as long as the client is doing what we've laid out and really working to make these things happen, they see results immediately. I mean, it could be anything from, I want to increase my visibility. Okay, well, then we talk about how do you do that and where these people are and what you need to do to make that happen. And once they do it, they do see those results. And I've had many clients that have been successful by just following their plan and really thinking through. I mean, even without me, having a plan is definitely something that a business owner needs, because you don't want to just, run after everything that comes your way. You think about your brand, what aligns with that brand, and how do you make your brand more visible and more appealing to the people that it's actually for. So once they figure that out, yes, absolutely. There are tangible results that they'll see, because it's something that they should be doing anyway. It's just me sort of pushing them to do it.
Right. Putting a structure. And what is the cost of this strategic planning process when someone hires you? Is there a set price, or does it depend on how much they work with you?
It depends on a few things. So we have packages, the one-time sort of consultation where we think big picture is $150 for a 1-hour consultation. And then whatever we need to do moving forward, there's a quote, and we kind of talk through that through that quote, and we talk through it, and then I'll give a quote based on, if this is something ongoing, if there's just particular promotion for an event, if there's certain needs that, you need right away versus later on down the line. We just kind of talk through it. It's a customized approach after that.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a minute with more from Melva Robertson.
Are you a small business owner paying too much in tax? My name is Mike Jezoshek, and I'm a CPA and host of the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. What I want to introduce to you is our tax minimization program. All too often, we see small business owners, when they think of tax, think preparing and filing tax returns instead of tax planning. That is why we launched the tax minimization program. The goal with our program is to make sure that small business owners are paying the least amount in taxes as legally possible. As part of our program, you'll have access to a library of tax strategies along with implementation guides. So not only do you get to understand a tax strategy, but you'll have the guide on how to implement it in your business today. You also have unlimited access to our team to ask general tax questions. Have a tax strategy you want to run past us, or a tax situation that came up, feel free to reach out to our team. We also do monthly group training sessions and have a private Facebook group and so much more. To join our tax minimization program, go to taxsavingspodcast.com/tax. That's taxsavingspodcast.com/tax, and be on your way to saving the most taxes as legally possible.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv. the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
Okay, we're back. That was a great discussion about your whole strategic planning process, Melva, and the whole idea of why small businesses have to focus on their brand and really on this idea of the customer experience, the end-to-end client journey. I love that. And I agree. It's a really important piece of what small businesses need. So many small businesses do deliver a good service, but the process of interacting with them is painful. They don't respond to emails. They don't respond to voicemails. It's just very difficult. They make it difficult to be a customer. It's unfortunate. If you could help them, that's really, really valuable. So I'm just wondering, Melba, in our last, we don't have too much time in this segment. You talk about something called the Own Your Own movement. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So I guess it was about 2014 or 2015. Well, a little later than that, maybe 2016. After I started my business, it started as a PR, exclusively as a PR company, and I was helping businesses and organizations promote their events and their subject matter expertise. Well, what I found was that there were a lot of people coming to me who wanted to start businesses, and they did not know what to do or the steps to get that done. So I started the Own Your Own movement. And what that was is, let's own it ourselves. Let's own our own businesses. It revolved around conferences. It revolved around a web series that I had called Owning the Dream, where we talked to entrepreneurs in different areas, whether they were athletes, whether they were brands, they were makeup artists in beauty and nonprofit organizations, mentorship organizations, all of these different realms of industries that we have out here. And basically talking about their journey, some of the things that worked for them, some of the things that didn't, lessons learned, things like that. And so the Own Your Own movement is really how I branched into this entrepreneurship space for my clients and helping them to really think through some of the strategic process, a lot of aspects of the strategic process that they would need to get started from a PR standpoint and a branding standpoint for their businesses. So that's the Own Your Own movement. It's really helping people to understand you can be an entrepreneur, but there are certain things that need to be in place in order to do this successfully, which revolve around branding, strategic planning, and really having your business concept down before you publicize who you are to the world and can't deliver.
Got it. And how did you personally get into this business? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Were you always interested in consulting and public relations?
Yeah, I've always been interested in communications and public relations. That's what I started out from college all the way to date. In a lot of different areas. I've worked in crisis communications, issues management, nonprofits, higher education, healthcare, all of these different realms of communications. And the connecting thread of all that has been branding, because really that's what a communicator does, is to really help increase the visibility for the brand and to ensure that the brand is upholding their standards. So that's always been something that I've been very passionate about. I actually started my company because I had an opportunity. I used to do little small jobs for friends and people in my network that needed some assistance. And there was a well-known comedian who was looking for a publicist. at the time, back in about 2014. And my husband happened to be in a conversation with this person and said, hey, my wife's a publicist, which I am. But at that time, I was a publicist for an organization, not on my own. So they exchanged numbers. I spoke with the person and they were saying, yeah, I need someone and I need someone soon. And I was really interested in doing this, but I did not have a legitimate business. I literally was only doing these things on the side for my friends. So that propelled me into this entrepreneurship space. I knew that I always wanted to own my own PR firm. I just wasn't, aware that I'd be doing it right then. But that jump started the whole entrepreneurship process, because I very quickly got everything together to start my business so that I would be legitimate for this potential client. And the rest is history. I've been doing it ever since.
Great. Well, it seems like it's going well. And just in our last couple of minutes, Melva, I know you're a wife, you're a mother. It seems like you're pretty busy. You're writing books. You got 2 of them. You're running this business. How do you find time? Do you have a sort of a routine, a schedule that you manage to ensure that you're able to do all the things just on a personal level that you want to do?
I do. Yes, there are many hats that I am wearing at the moment. But what I found is really helpful is to schedule my time. So between certain hours of the day, I'm specifically doing work for my clients. Other hours of the day, I may be doing something. I'm also work full time. So of course, there's that 9 to 5 hour. And then on certain days, I do consulting and coaching. So on maybe Monday and Wednesday are the coaching days. Weekends, of course, family, social time, after hours, of course. And I do a lot of late night, early morning hours to actually do the work that's required for my clients. But it's definitely about time management.
Right. Got it. And last question, do you ever have time for fun? Is there anything in particular you like to do when you're not busy working on the business?
Oh yeah, fun. I mean, any opportunity to spend with my family. I have a 9-year-old daughter, my husband, and we have a little 5-month-old puppy. So any opportunity to be with them is fun. We do a lot of outside things now during the pandemic, hikes, and we have a nice mountain that we'll walk. I like to binge watch certain shows, old 90s shows. I enjoy singing and dancing and just being silly with the family. So it's, and definitely travel, although that's been limited over the past year. But when we can, I will definitely be traveling again.
That's good. Well, what's your next destination? If you could go somewhere right now on a plane, where would it go? Where would you go?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. If I could go anywhere right now, it'd probably be Costa Rica.
Yeah, sounds nice.
I want to see water and I want to see sand. So very next stop, we'll have beach, sand, and water.
Sounds good. I heard they have good surfing there. I don't know if you're a surfer, but they have good surfing.
I like to watch surfing.
Very good. Well, Melva, you've been a delight to talk to, and I've really enjoyed this whole idea of the strategic planning process and the customer end-to-end journey and how small businesses need to focus on that in order to better build that bond with their customers, keep them coming back. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I hope folks will listen to this and look you up and maybe check out your books and other information.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed our conversation, and thank you for letting me speak to your audience.
You're welcome. And for you out there, if you enjoyed this podcast, listening to Melva, subscribe and tell a friend or a colleague to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, make it a great week.